So exams are being cancelled or postponed, or they're just changing in some way, like all over the world because of the Panny D. And am I saying that should also apply to the owls? Maybe. I failed my owls. Well, I actually got quite a number of owls, but I wanted to get an owl in absolutely every subject that you can get an owl in, and I didn't. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you've been living under a booktube rock, because the Magical Readathon is one of the best, most exciting readathons that there is here on booktube, and it ran the first portion of it, the owls. So this is a readathon that's based around like the Hogwarts exams. Our owls ran in April, and the newts will be happening around, I think, August maybe. And when it comes to the owls, I like to get a qualification in every single subject, which means reading a book to fit a particular prompt that corresponds to that subject. So I've got my options open when it comes to the newts and the prerequisites that there are for certain subjects. I was planning on becoming a Quidditch referee after my newts, but I didn't even complete all the tasks I needed for that. I spoke about this a bit in my April wrap-up, but my reading was so strange during April. I read quite a lot in the first 2 weeks of the month. I did a reading challenge where I read 10 really small books in one day, and then I just hit a wall and a slump until like the last couple days of the month, where I pulled myself out of that reading slump. Or actually, one of these books that I'm going to talk about pulled me out of that slump. But there was maybe like a 2-week period where I just wasn't reading anything, and I was picking up a lot of books and starting them and then not getting into them. And some of the books that I was planning on reading in those 2 weeks were to fulfill the subjects that I needed to become a Quidditch referee. So when it comes around to the newts later this year, I'm just gonna have to reevaluate my career options.
We can't cancel Quidditch.
I'm just going to whiz through these books really, really quickly and tell you which qualifications I got from these books and which ones I failed at. If you want full reviews of the books I did read, I will leave my April wrap-up linked down below in the description. Also, do leave me a comment down below and let me know how you did in your owls, what career you're working towards. But let's just get in to my owls. Ancient Ruins was to read a book that had a heart on the cover, and I read It Only Happens in the Movies by Holly Bourne. There's a little heart in here, so that's one qualification I did get. For Charms, you had to read a book that had a white cover, and Kindred by Octavia E. Butler is a mostly white cover, and this is the book that really pulled me out of my reading slump at the end of the month. It was fantastic. For History of Magic, you had to read a book that had witches or wizards, and I read Beyond Platform 13 by Sybil Powder and Eva Ibbotson. Our main character in this book, or one of our main characters, is Odge Gribble, who is a hag. That's a witch, right? Astronomy was to read a book when it was dark outside, and I read a short story collection. I read Treats by Lara Williams. For Care of Magical Creatures, you had to read a book that had a beak on the cover, and I read Asha and the Spirit Bird by Jasbinder Balan. There is a bird on here, and the bird has a beak. For Divination, you had to use a random number generator to select what you were going to read, and the random number generator was very kind to me and chose A Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle. For Muggle Studies, you had to read a contemporary book, and I read The Harpy by Megan Hunter. For Potions, you had to read a book that was under 150 pages, and I read a poetry collection. I read Fire by Jackie Kay. Now on to what I didn't do. So for Defense Against the Dark Arts, you had to read a book that was set at sea or by the coast, and I was planning on reading The Beach Hut by Cassandra Parkin, but I only got like 75 pages in it. And then I DNF'd it, but it's a temporary DNF. This was one of the books that I picked up when I was in a real reading slump, and I was just picking up stuff, reading a few pages of it, and not getting into it. Definitely like my fault and my mindset's fault, not the book. Actually, hold on. So, in my 10 books in a day vlog challenge reading thing, I read I Can Catch a Monster by Bethan Wolven. And I think part of this happens by the sea. They meet the Kraken, but I feel like that could... Is that definitely at the sea? Could that be in a lake? So there are 2 bodies of water on the map. The first is the Lake of Mystery, and the second is the Sea of Secrets. And I'm certain that some of this is in the sea. I heard the sea is full of monsters, the Griffin said, and so they set off to find one. Brilliant! So I did get a qualification in Defense Against the Dark Arts. For Herbology, you had to read a book that started with M, and my plan was to read The Mixer, discounting the by Michael Cox. And even when I picked this book, I felt like I wasn't going to read it. It was the only book I had with me that fit the prompt. It's quite chunky, and I kind of want to read this when the football's on. This is a non-fiction book about football tactics, and it just feels a bit weird reading it when there's no football on. I didn't manage to get a qualification in arithmancy, which was to read a book from outside of your favourite genre. I planned on reading Bunny by Mona Awad. I don't think any of the other books I read in the month were outside of some of my favourite genres, so I don't think there's anything I could like force into that prompt. And for Transfiguration, you had to read a book that featured shape-shifting, and my plan was to read The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman, and I didn't read that either. I feel like for the challenges that I didn't fulfill, I probably could have found like really short books to fit those challenges, be it like getting graphic novels or really short audiobooks from my library. But I just didn't really want to make my reading a chore. I didn't want to force myself to read something for a challenge when I was only just really tiptoeing out of a reading slump. I was definitely tempted to do that, but I kind of had to rationalize it with myself and be like, Leanne, these aren't actual exams. Like, there aren't actually any proper repercussions if you don't complete these challenges. The subjects that I didn't get qualifications in that I think, if my memory serves me correctly, that I would need to become a Quidditch referee are Transfiguration and Herbology. So we'll reevaluate in August. I feel like you need Herbology and Transfiguration for a lot of careers. So we'll see what happens. All of the books that I've mentioned will be linked down below in the description, as well as a link to Hive, which is a platform where you can buy books from independent bookstores. Do leave me a comment down below, let me know how you got on with your owls, what career you're working towards, what was the best book you read throughout your owls. I would love to have a chat with you guys. I hope you're doing well, and I will talk to you in my next video.